Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could all join us today. Hamish K is here. Hey, Hamish. Froglid, Grateful Trucker. Good afternoon, all from Rochester, New York, doing my 34. Stabs is here. Hey, man. How are you? Welcome. Welcome back to another edition of Smart Trucking Live. It's just a Q&A today, but I got some stuff I wanted to bounce off you anyway. So Nick just told me a story here a few minutes ago, and it's about an Uber driver. And he's cruising along, and he sees a girl hitchhiking, needs a ride, so he swings over, picks her up. And the Uber guy's not much of a conversationalist. He's just driving away in his little car. And after a while, the girl says, I'm kind of uncomfortable. And the Uber guy thinks, I haven't said a word. Why would you be uncomfortable? So he says, why? What can I do to make you more comfortable? She says, you can quit playing with that stick in between the seats, meaning the gear shift. And the Uber guy's kind of puzzled. And the passenger says, you're just doing that to make me nervous. I'm a mechanic, and my car doesn't have a stick like that. So I know that you don't need a stick like that. So quit playing with it. You're making me uncomfortable. I thought, there's how knowledgeable some of the new mechanics are today, that they don't even recognize a stick shift car anymore. Man, that was, God, half the cars were stick shift when I was growing up. The first car Kathy and I ever had together was a stick shift. So long gone now. You don't see them hardly at all anymore, but stick shifts were quite common in cars, even back then. Where am I? I'm way behind here. M. Brady, greetings from Vero Beach, Florida. How's the weather down there right now? I have checked Florida lately. I don't know whether they're a little... Last time I looked, there was a little cooler than usual down there. I don't know if it's warmed up or not. Froglid, I've been waiting for this for a while, watching this YouTube channel for a long time. First time speaking on. Hey, man, well, I'm glad you could join us. Where are you watching from? I'd like to know that. I'm always interested in that. Cameron Abrams, what topics today? I got a whole bunch of stuff. It's a Q&A, but I got a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. So, bloody dead. Missed the last two streams. Sorry, I got busy. We noticed you were gone. I just figured you're working on your Kenworth. But, no, glad to see you back again. Hey, there's Fred. Good day, Smart Trucking team from Walcott, Iowa. Good day, Fred. How are you and your wife doing? Are you heading out or heading back in? Heavy Haul Nick is here. Hey, man, glad you could join us. I don't know if any of you probably haven't noticed any of the effects of this new contractor law that came into, contractor rule, I should say, that came into being Monday. So I'm sure it'll take a while for everyone to sink in, because the trucking carriers, companies and those guys aren't going to voluntarily jump into it and start changing everything. They're going to wait probably until they get caught or until they get reported, or they're just going to ignore the thing and hope it goes away. But I was thinking of the Amazon drivers this morning. All those Amazon drivers are contractors. And Jeff Bezos will not want to change them over to employees. And so they're in a pretty good fight just with Bezos alone, because he's got the money to stall and fight that whole thing. So he'll probably be one of the leading contenders when all this hits the fan. So, hey, Banches is here, and he's just down from Vero Beach at St. Lucie, Florida. Glad you could join us. Batu Verlick. Hi, all. Hey, man, how are you? Froglid, heading through Indiana City, going to California. Nice destination. That's either where Fred's going to or coming from. Oh, there he is. He's homeward bound. So no, Fred's on his way back in from California right now. What else was new? Oh, you know what's big that hit the presses here this week is that Biden has announced that he's going to start putting charging stations in for electric trucks across the country. And he has this plan to be completed by 2040, which isn't that far off. So he's going to start at all the major ports like Savannah and Long Beach, Jersey, New York City, Houston, all the major ports, plant charging stations around all the ports, and then gradually over the years work inward along the interstates until he gets to the center of the country. And by the end of the day, by the end of 2040, he figures he'll have 49,000 miles covered for charging stations. So he's serious about moving ahead with this electric truck plan, even for long-haul trucks. So we'll have to watch and see how that works out. But that's what he announced this week. It's something else. What else do I know this week? Greetings from Istanbul. Wow. That's a hike.
The Bloody Dead coming in with a $5 to start the stream off. Thank you very much for that, Bloody. I asked my boss 2 streams ago if he had a time machine, would he go back in time to trucking or stay in the present? And he started in 1966, and he said he'd rather truck in the present. Thank you very much for the 5.
Well, yeah, thank you, Bloody Dead. And that's an interesting take, because a lot of guys would say they'd go back. But it's interesting that your boss feels that he's better off these days. So it takes all kinds. It's interesting, though. It was a good question. Good question. I don't know. I kind of like the older days better myself, just because I like stuff simple, and it seems complicated to me these days.
If you said why, if you gave any reasoning to that, I'd be curious to know as to why he said present.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I just like stuff simple. That's why I liked it back in the day. I don't know if you guys have seen the new Volvo yet, the 2024 Volvo. And I have not been a fan of Volvos. If you've been watching this channel for any time, you know that I haven't been a big Volvo fan. But you know what? This new one, it actually looks pretty cool. I like it. And I learned something, too. And apparently, I thought when I read that this truck, this new 2024 Volvo, had a driver's airbag, I thought, never heard of that. That's got to be brand new in the industry. I haven't heard anything about that. I did a little researching, and it turns out the Cascadia also comes if you want to. It's an option. But you can also get a driver's airbag in the Cascadia. But it's funny that the industry hasn't done something like that before, but interesting to see it now.
Bloody Dead coming in with another donation of 10. Thank you very much for that. As for the CB, I always have one and always have it on when I start the truck every day. Unfortunately, about 10% of drivers still use them today, and about 5% have them off until they get stuck. It defeats the purpose. Yeah, very true. Thank you very much for the 10, Bloody.
Thanks for the 10. And you know what? I was looking just this week earlier on the newest Galaxy 10 meter. That I would like to have, and then I thought, I've only got one friend left that's still working and running another one of those 10-meter radios, and so I wouldn't, sitting up here in the north, I wouldn't have anybody to talk to, and the radio was like $900. I couldn't believe how much they've done. Mind you, it was like a really top-notch 10-meter, put out 100 watts, but man, the price was just staggered me. Fred, and Fred's talking about the power grid, and they've got guys down there saying it too, that they're one step away from brownouts through the country as it is. They don't make enough power on the grid. So how is he going to improve the grid in time to support all these charging stations that he's putting in? Fred's right. There's not enough infrastructure for it, especially like California, man. Everybody turns on their lights at the same time in California. Everything goes dark. So yeah, good point, Fred. It might be just another politician's daydream. God knows they do plenty of that. Do semis not have airbags? Wow. I was living a lie this time. I don't think you were living a lie, but that is just coming into the trucking industry now. I am not aware of PACCAR making anything with driver airbags, but as I say, Volvo and Freightliner are now. Here's Stubbs. Driver airbag have been mandatory for the last 20 years here in Europe. We also have side airbags on top of the side windows when you go into a rollover, also like the VNL. Finally has 24-volt electrical system. I did read that too. So, yeah, we don't have anything here with side airbags, Stabs. This is just coming to us now in North America. And you wonder why, if you guys have been on it for 20 years. why it's taken so long to come here. Huh. That's interesting. Hey, Z-Bear's here. He's in Addison, Illinois. Thanks for joining us, Z-Bear. The most interesting thing about the new Volvo is that it will be running on 24 volts instead of 12. Yeah, Stabs was just saying that. And that is interesting. But what a nice looking truck that is. They've really gone all out on the design. The front grille is completely different, and I like it. It looks good, man. Seaver says, no airbags, we die like men. I prefer not to die. I've also heard rumblings from Cummins, I think, something about a 48-volt alternator. That's from Grateful Trucker. I haven't heard that yet. I know Cummins is doing a lot of stuff right now. They're trying to develop a hydrogen engine. They're trying to develop a natural gas engine. They've got all sorts of projects in the fire. They just paid a multi-million-dollar fine for what was that for? Some issue they had with the emissions, I think it was. They paid a huge fine on that. But yeah, they're working on different projects all the time. Dave, I think you meant passenger airbag. We've had driver airbags here in the U.S. for a while. I didn't know that. Is that true, Paul? The first one, like I say, the first one I came across was this new Volvo, and then I did a little research and found out the Cascadia had it as well. I didn't know. I thought they were new, but they've been in North America for a little while. Well, that's good to know. It's probably just as well that I didn't know, because no one's been having crashes, and they wouldn't have had to have them not employed. You know what I mean? Working. So. Well, hopefully you'll never get the chance to find out whether it deploys. There's the word I'm looking for, deploys or not. But some of those things are pretty violent too. I guess they can break your nose or something, and they really come out. Froglid, I started out Gettysburg by Tuesday, and I'll have this load off in Montana by Tuesday, and I'll have this load off in Montana. Yippee-ki-yay, truck driver.
The Bloody Dead coming in with another $5. He didn't say why, but he gave me the idea, like Dave has gone through. There's plenty of ups and downs. Yes, absolutely. Bloody, thank you very much for another $5.
Yeah, thanks, Bloody. And there has, I've actually got a little video coming out here shortly about things that have changed just in the 50 years that I've been in trucking, and it's quite a list. And I've only hit the highlights in this video, but there have been a ton of changes in the industry. And the trucking industry is changing all the time. So you can never just bet on a sure thing in trucking, because sooner or later something will change.
And Bloody coming in with the combined $10 donation. Thank you so much, Bloody. So generous. The engines are better back in the day. More freedom, but it's easier to truck these days despite the issues we see even in our 40-year veteran ages. And maybe in future, if he agrees to do an interview with him, with this guy's boss, he would love to see that. Yeah, absolutely.
We'd love to talk to him.
Probably get that in the works.
The engines, I like the engines better back then because they were more reliable and you could work on them yourself. Like, you didn't need to be a diesel mechanic to fix most of the stuff on it. So I like them better back in the day. Now, with all this emission stuff and the electronics and stuff, you need a computer just to plug into the motor to see how it's feeling, and it's beyond my capabilities. Why in the world would you get a truck if you can get a job that's paying 80 cents per mile? Why in the world would you get a truck if you can get a job that's paying 80 cents a mile without the truck? Yeah, like W. Robinson, I got it. You're talking company guys making 80 cents a mile, and that's a damn good question. And these days, if it were me right now, I'd take the company driver in the 80 cents a mile, because they're having so much trouble finding freight and getting paid for freight. And the load boards are all, 3/4 of those guys are thieves. So I do a solid company driver with a good trucking company all day long these days. That'd be my first. I wouldn't I wouldn't even consider buying a truck these days unless it was like an old girl I was going to fix up and use it like a hobby truck or something, but not to rely on, not for what the price of diesel fuel is and all those other things. Sorry, I meant to say that 40-year-old veteran agrees. Yeah, no, we knew what you meant there, Bloody Dead. I'd love to talk to him. Z-Bear, what would you say, Dave, would be the first step into getting into trucking how it used to be in your day? If it was even, what would you say would be the first step of getting into trucking? It was so easy. You just, the license, when I got my license, it cost me another $10 over like a regular driver's license. They gave you a chauffeur's license, and it was an extra $10. And all I did was walk up to the first company that had trucks that was close to where I lived and applied for a job, and I was working that day or the next day. It was super easy. Back then, truck drivers were needed. Everybody was looking for good truck drivers, and it was easy to get a job. I just kind of walked in wherever I wanted to work and started, virtually right away back then. And there were no computers, so there's no way to check your background. They'd ask you for references, and you say, "Oh, I worked for this guy down the road last year, and here's his phone number and his name," and they just call. And if the other guy said you hadn't crashed anything and you hadn't stolen anything, you had a job. It was easy. Here's Joel Jenkins. If you guys haven't played American Truck Simulator yet, it's the most realistic simulator I've ever played. Joel, I've watched guys play that on YouTube. We have our own setup here. We never did seem to really get it working properly, but I can see how cool it is. And they design different trucks and stuff on the screen. It's one of these days we'll get our system hooked up and working, and I'm looking forward to that. But Stab says company drivers with an hourly rate. Thank you, and that's the best way to go if you can get it, is by the hour. And the last job I had here, my little semi-retirement job, was hauling lumber in the woods by the hour, and that was a really good job. I really liked it. And you only had to put in 8 hours a day. It was great. People trying to talk me into it and have a whole fight about it, about buying a truck. God, don't do it. Don't do it. Not these days. Where am I here? I just do road tests to get experience, and that's a good idea. Chris Stormrider. I live in Greece, and that's the reason I'm so interested in trucking, is the ATS. Yeah, I'm sure it's a whole world different in Greece than it is over here. One nice thing about over here is we just have no shortage of expansive roadways. You can go for days out here. So that's kind of nice about the trucking over here. You don't have to worry about anything sometimes. Like if you're crossing the west to the west coast, you can go for days and days. It's a great drive. Sorry, what would you say would be the first step to getting the trucking industry back to what it used to be? Z-Bear, I don't think there's any hope of getting it back. Like some of these really good carriers try to keep it that way, like old school, as best that they can. But between the regulations and the electronics and all of that stuff, I think it's virtually impossible. The price of fuel, you just couldn't pull off the stuff you used to be able to do. And this just-in-time delivery system, it's just a nightmare. That's one of the worst things about modern-day trucking. And you'll never get these great big shippers away from that now. Not that they respect the system, because you can have a 2:00 appointment and then sit there for 6 hours. But some of these monster companies like Nestle and Coca-Cola and those guys, you'll never get them away from this just-in-time delivery system, unfortunately.
Another 10 coming in from the Bloody Dead. Thank you so much for that. My boss says the biggest cause of breakdowns is the emissions and computers. He could overhaul an engine with the amount of tools he carries, but won't touch the current engines. Bloody, thank you very much for the 10.
Yes, thank you, Bloody. And I'm with him. I agree. I carry that, that kind of tools for myself for my old truck. But these days, like I see new guys carrying laptops that they can plug in and I guess they tried to change the programming or at least see what's wrong with the motor, but I was never like an electronics geek. I just like the old stuff you could work on with wrenches. Frogbed, I gave up my truck because it cost me too much to run it. I became a company driver, less stress, no maintenance problem. Froglid, I think you made the right move. All sorts of guys are doing that now. And actually, I ended up parking my truck at the end and driving a company truck. I couldn't make the money that I was happy with my own truck and authority. And I didn't want to work that hard anymore anyway. So the company driver was the perfect solution for me. I enjoyed it. If they'd had really nice company trucks back when I was 17, I'd have never bought my own truck. I would have loved to have stayed a company driver, but that wasn't possible back then. What's the benefit to having your trailer axle set all the way to the back of the trailer? Well, provided, you can get away with it depending on what length trailer you've got. I always found that with a tight tandem that the whole truck and trailer rode better the farther back you slid the axles. And that was how, back when we had 42 footers, that was how everybody rode, with the axles hard to the back, and it would corner predictably, it would back up predictably, and it was just a whole nicer setup. I don't like the 53 tight tandems now compared to the old trailers. I think they've gotten too long myself, but that's the way it is. One of the changes in trucking. That will never happen. Old school trucking is dead. Dennis, I'm afraid you're right. I hate to see it go, and there's lots of truck shows where you can still go and see the old trucks, but I don't think as an industry it can ever function old school anymore. I hate just-in-time shipping as well. It's completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous expectations on the truck drivers. And half of these just-in-time schedules are agreed upon between the salesman at the carrier and the receiver at the customer, and neither one of them ever driven a truck in their life. They don't think that drivers need to slow down for traffic or weather. They don't think they need to stop and sleep or eat or fuel or any of that stuff. They just take the distance, divide it by 55 miles an hour, and say, oh, he'll be here then. Make the appointment for then. It's an insane system. JL, can you run a 53-foot trailer with the axles all the way to the back in Ontario, providing the weight isn't an issue? That's a really good question. I don't think they'd let you away with it, frankly. And there's so many scales up here now that I'm sure you'd get grief sooner or later. So no, I wouldn't try it up here. I'm not even sure of the legal ramifications if that's on the books as to not being able to do that, but I'm sure you get grief from somebody.
All right, I'm going to read these out of orders just because I can answer the first one, but then I'll let Dave answer the second. Bloody Dead coming in with the 5, or just a heads up, he's terrible with technology, so he wants to know how to get the interview set up. We're actually kind of in the works of a little project that we're going to set up soon of getting Dave in with into a call with a number of other truck drivers and like-minded drivers like himself. So we're kind of in the works of that right now, but when we're ready to start inviting people, we'll let you know, and we'll definitely reach out to see if we can probably get them on the show. That'll be quite interesting to watch. And then Joel coming in with the 5 as well. Joel, thank you very much for that. It seems like the idea of getting rid of the owner-operator is very real.
Let me answer Joel first, and Joel, thank you for the 5. But yeah, and that's what this new contractor rule is designed to do, for better or for worse. I don't agree with getting rid of owner operators, but sadly it will do some of those owner operators in. The really experienced guys have seen this coming. They've gotten their own authority, and then they won't be out of work. But a lot of owner operators that aren't ready for this may just fall to the side. Bloody Dead, as far as me and the technology, that's what we've got Nick for, because you wouldn't even see my face if it weren't for Nick. Oh, okay. So that's okay if he means his boss. I thought he was talking about me. How would he get the interview set up? Oh, the boss. Yeah.
Yes, no.
You better help him.
We know how we would get you there by force.
We couldn't. I couldn't function this stuff without Nick, and maybe you can help your boss.
He's kidding, of course. We would help your boss set up everything that he needs to know.
Nick
is what he's trying to say.
Nick could talk him through it. Daniel Meredith, hey man, would like to get NASCAR truck driver on here and hear how trucking is on their side. I got a story about that in a second. Are you liking the newer style semi now, or do you like the old school Kenworth like myself? I still like the old school trucks with the hoods. Just a personal preference. I know these days you've got to go for the curb sniffers to get decent fuel mileage because the fuel's so expensive. But I still prefer having the big hood out in front of me. Bushcraft, Quebec. I just got my CDL. Got a 2-road test. I got 2 road tests, one for Kingsway. I forgot the brake check, and after I plugged the B-train faux in wood chip, that's cool to drive, but I need a place up north. I forgot the brake check, and after I plugged the B-train. I liked B-trains, by the way. If you're going to pull them, I pulled them for 7 years. Quite like B-trains. Here's Fred. In Ontario, it is not allowed. It has to be no more than 41 feet from kingpin to center of trailer spread. So, oh yeah. Well, thank you, Fred. I wasn't sure. I've never run a tight tandem 53 in Ontario myself. I've always had a spread axle. When they got to the 53 foot length, I was running spreads, but I probably wasn't supposed to be doing that, but that's what I was doing. His daughter takes care of the technology, but yeah, he's very old school. He still uses the Atlas. Well, good, man. Good. Look forward to chatting with him. And thanks for the help with that axle setting. There, Fred, I appreciate that. Because I didn't know. I shouldn't even finish the whole story, but I didn't cross a whole lot of Ontario scales if I could possibly help it.
Muppet coming in with the 5 Australian. I actually didn't even know that was a different currency. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it comes up differently for us. Anyways, can you do a video on the old school CB 10.4 to the 1039, what they mean?
There's an article on the website about that, actually.
Muppet, thank you for the 5. Kathy says there's an article on our website about that exactly, and she has been pushing me lately to do another CB radio video. So I will work on that. AJ, the first step that can keep old trucking going is just having the old guys help the new drivers the right ways and give them the old school advice. I agree with that. I agree with that. I still see that going on in the big truck stops. I still see the old guys helping new guys back in. Some of the new guys are a little bit stubborn and don't want to listen. They think they know it all, but I still see the old fellas helping the newer guys, and which is nice to see, because that's how we learned. The old guys helped us when we were new to it. I learned more from the old guys than anything else. Like they were fountains of wisdom, and I learned more from them than from anybody. Bloody Dead used my expression here.
Bloody, thank you very much for another 5. Curb sniffers for better fuel mileage is a lie. I drove a 389 going up to 77 in VA hauling lumber, and I was getting up to 7.5 miles per gallon. Had a 3.55 rears.
Thanks for the 5, Bloody Dead, and that's damn respectable. Cummins motor, I would assume. But, boy, you can't fault that.
Z-Bear, I believe his handle was 30 miles an hour under the speed limit was his handle. Thoughts on that? He wants to know what your handle on the CB was. I said 30 miles under the speed limit was your handle.
I didn't. Canadians didn't really have handles. The Americans all had handles, but
It depends on what you mean by handles.
we
maybe.
just, on the CB radio, we just called each other by name.
Maybe he means other handles.
I'm not exploring that. What was your Z-Bear? But no, I didn't have a handle. And generally I just, we only talked among the guys that we knew, so everybody knew everybody else's name. And there was a couple of guys that we gave handles to that weren't necessarily complimentary, but no, we were not 19 either. I should mention that too. We had these 10-meter radios, and we were up on our own channel, so we would just chat like we were on the phone. We didn't use the handles in channel 19. How long is Pete Booty Boy going to remain transportation secretary? God, my guess is he'll be out in November. And I heard a really funny nickname for him the other day, and I can't think of what it was now. I've been calling him Pickle Park Pete, but I heard a really good one and it escapes me. But I imagine he'll be gone come November. Can't be soon enough. You see here on the news the other day, he reprimanded the railroad that rolled a train over. Christ, it's got to be a year ago now, and he's just coming around. He didn't even go to the accident scene for like a month to inspect it, and then finally he's come out with a recommendation that perhaps the rail line should be a little more careful. Well, thanks for the contribution there, Pete. AJ, the first step that can keep old school trucking is just having the old school. I read that one already. Yeah, but that's right. Daniel, here's Sheets tanker drivers, and Daniel disappeared on me. Damn it all! I hate it when that happens. Oh, here, get $38.65 an hour, 4 days a week, which is good money, and 3 days off. That is good. Tanker drivers usually do pretty well. I pulled tank for a while. That was one of the reasons I pulled tank for a while. I liked it, and I got good fuel mileage, and they paid me. There was nothing that you had to do that they didn't pay you for. Let me put it that way. Bloody Dead, always talking about the 389, and kept it at 73 and was surprised myself. It all depends on how you drive the truck. And that's right. One of the old guys that taught me said, just imagine that there's an egg underneath the fuel pedal. Don't tromp on it. Just ease off and ease on, slowly, gently, easily. And I always managed to get, even with my old girl, I managed to get into the sevens with it. So not all the time, but it was all, you're right. It's exactly right. It's all how you drive it. But I guess with a lot of these big carriers now, they've got to hire anybody with a pulse, and a lot of those guys aren't very gentle, so they've got to make the trucks as fuel mileage friendly as they can possibly make them.
Assad coming in with the $5. Thank you very much for your first donation to the stream. What's worse, violation or ticket? I got some violation, tried paying it off, but at least, but you can't. It just stays on your record. At least a ticket you can fight. Assad, thank you very much for the $5.
I'm laughing at Fred. Fred, you caught me. You caught me. Sorry, I missed that conversation, Nick, from Assad. Did he have a question? I was busy laughing at Fred there.
Yes, with the $5 no-no, he wanted to know what's worse, I guess, in your opinion, with the violation or a ticket, because a ticket you can at least fight, but the violation stays on your record. I guess it's kind of
they're kind of a funny thing too, because tickets and violations, sometimes they go to the carrier and to the driver, or just to the carrier. So it all depends. It all depends on who's issuing the ticket. I've had them go strictly to the carrier if I could convince them that it was the carrier's fault for overloading me or something like that. But you rarely got away with that. But the Bloody Dead X15 Cummins getting the good fuel mileage in the 389. Still laughing at Fred. He doesn't miss too much. After watching your video on backing by just putting my hand at the bottom of the wheel, it made life so much easier. The guys at my CDL school was like, dude, how are you so good at that? That was just a simple trick that I thought I'd use in a video one day, and it got a lot of views. It turned out really well, so we were kind of happy with that. That was just an idea off the cuff. How does some get a car license? That's a good question, Muppet. That's a really good question. It makes me wonder every day. Even in this little town that I live in, there are half the people here that shouldn't have a license. Hey Dave, have you ever heard of running steer tires on your drive axles for better fuel mileage? I have a friend that does that. He doesn't run tread tires or snow tires or whatever you want to call them at all. He runs nothing but steering axle tires. Starts on the steering axle. When they get down, he rotates them to the drives. When they get down a little farther, he rotates them to his trailer. And he's got a big truck with a big motor, and he gets really good fuel mileage. And part of the reason is because he does that, I'm sure. But you know, he might be the best driver I know. Because even in snow, where most guys would want more grip on their drives, like including me, he just drives that thing through snow like has no traction issues or anything. He's a joy to watch. He's really good. Steer tires on the drive axle is a big no-no. Yes, for most people, I would agree with that. It's not that I don't like that name. I'm just embarrassed by being caught. That's for Fred. 4 million drivers here. Good afternoon, South Dakota. Slim Wanted Man. Good afternoon to you, South Dakota. God's country there too. One of the states I would certainly consider moving. Check the nearest cereal box. I'm not even going to explore what that's about from Stabs to Muppet. We usually run the same size steers and trailer tires if the trailer has singles. Huh. I always try to run like the same size rubber truck and trailer just to keep everything uniform. And that way, you know, you had a spare if you needed it sometimes. When you had a tire that you'd taken off the drives that was down, but you know, you weren't ready to put on your trailer yet, you could carry it in the belly rack. I always carried a spare in my belly rack, and every once in a while it would come in handy to have a spare. Yeah, I run my used steers on my wagon. That's what I did too. I always ran like a tread on my drives, because I did a lot of work, a lot of my driving in snow in the wintertime and in the mountains. So I always wanted grip tires. But this buddy of mine now, but he would run California with that truck with those tires, but he'd usually go south. Why do scales give out more violations than tickets? My guess is, I jumped the queue there, Nick. I'm sorry. My guess there is that if a guy fights a ticket, the scale guy's got to go to court, or at least that's how it is here. If you decide to fight a ticket, but a violation, you or your company gets a slap on the wrist, your CVOR takes a hit. That's probably why, because the scale guys don't want to be bothered going to court. Thank you for the 2, by the way. I stole Nick's job. Sorry, Nick. The ugly truckland. Who needs tires? There's trucks running around out there with no engines. Be safe out there, ladies and gents. Not a big fan at all on super singles. No, me either. And I've told this story before, but when super singles were coming out, I pulled into a tire shop in southern Utah. It was the TA down in southern Utah. I forget what exit, and I needed a tire replaced. And this guy had super singles stocked at the TA tire shop, and he also had a whole collection of rims, like racks full of rims for super singles. I said, what's with that? He says, super singles are the best thing that has come to the tire industry, he says. He says, I love them because when the guy is running super singles, when the tire goes flat, it drops to the ground right away, and then, because there's no tire beside it to hold it up, the axle or the rim all gets chewed. And he says, so I always go out and I replace the super single at $700 a piece. The rim, because they need the rim now too, at like $900 a piece. He says, I'm making a fortune. And they can't limp it in. And there was the next thing. He says, you got to get the road call in there because you can't limp it in. I hope I said that they had rims, not axles. But anyway. But yeah, the super singles, I am not a fan of those. And a lot of them are like low profile tread patterns. So they're designed for fuel mileage, but they're virtually useless on anything but a dry road. I am not a fan of super singles. Trucker Hershey's here. Hey man, glad you could join us. Hello, Dave. Thoughts on Jake brake delay? Thoughts on leaving Jake on all the time with delay? I just always flicked mine on and off as needed. And the reason for that was back in the day, in the old days, if you left the Jake on and wandered into the truck stop, it would stall the motor out, and that wasn't good for the motor. So I was just always in the habit of shutting it off after I used it. These days, the electronic motors won't stall out the engine if you leave the Jake on. And, you know, I'm sure the motor is designed for that you can do that. But out of habit, I would just turn it on and off as I needed it. Stabs. For getting maximum gross weight here for all single tires on combination. 76 tons on 11 axles. Dual tires get the same on 9 axles. I'm sure there's cost savings. I know there's cost savings. But I just, like in the vast expanses of North American highways, you could get out there in the middle of nowhere and not find a tire shop that had a super single. And they come in different sizes of all strange things too. So there was another reason I never ran them, because you couldn't always find them everywhere. Hey Dave, my name is Jake and I'm in grade 12 of high school right now in Perth, southern area in Ontario. I have the opportunity to drive for a cattle company as my first trucking job. Thoughts? Good idea? I would take it absolutely. You know, I'm sure you'll be running with somebody that knows the industry. And that was one of the guys that I learned with, was a bull rack guy, a friend of my dad's. And one of the best experiences of my life, aside from shoveling out the trailer, which I never did do. He never did make me do it, but no. And that's a skill unto itself, running cattle, because those cows, those girls in the trailer never quit moving. So the trailer's rocking and rolling all the time. It'd be a great experience. I would go for it all day long. Good skills to learn. Slim Wanted Man, 4 million drivers here. Good afternoon from South Dakota. I read that already. How did I get all backed up here now? Oh, Garrett Burns is in South Dakota as well. Catching up on my comments here. Single tire trailers roll nice and well, but dual tires get more gross weight for less axles, but it's rock sled for rolling. Yeah, I have followed super single trailers, heavily loaded down the road, and you can see them swaying back and forth a little, where you don't see that on a tandem wheel setup. For I just prefer the tandems for a whole bunch of reasons. Just passed through Flagstaff, Arizona. Snow is coming down hard in Flagstaff. You know, it's like spring here. That's really strange when Flagstaff is getting snow, and you know, our grass is coming out. Times are changing.
Lace Base AK coming in with the first dono from them with the $10. Thank you very much for that, Lace. Hope you're enjoying the stream this afternoon. The Bloody Dead coming in once again with another $5. I always leave the Jakes on 24/7. When I shift, I push 2 inches of free play on the clutch so I don't activate it while shifting. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the donos.
Yes, thank you both, and that is a good way to do it. Bloody Dead, just leave your, but don't, you know, make sure you're not interfering with the clutch, like so it comes in play so you're riding the clutch, but you know enough not to do that. It's guys that don't know enough to ride the clutch that do that. You know, there's a danger there. But yeah, as long as you're on the free play on the top, you're fine doing that. At the Love's truck stop, scared to be parked, waiting to get hit by an idiot in Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, and that's a danger no matter where you park anymore. And that's one of the real problems. And it's a lack of training. Like, accidents happen once in a blue moon, but it shouldn't be that somebody gets hit in the truck stop every night, and that's virtually the way it is these days. And it's like I used to go right to the back far corner of the truck stop to try not to get hit, hoping the truck stop wouldn't get that full. But yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts. And nothing makes you feel sicker than waking up in the morning and your mirror's folded in or there's a big scar on your wagon. But yeah, complete lack of training. What are your thoughts on local trucking such as dump trucking? I like dump trucking because it was, in the area I did it in, it was by the hour. I know some outfits do it by the load. I don't agree with that. But if it's by the hour, dump trucking is good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Hello, Smart Trucker. Any advice on how to go through a mountain when it's snowing? Trading, I got multiple different answers. Daniel, just creep along like you're driving Miss Daisy. If you break traction, try to get to the shoulder of the road so you got your right set of axles in the gravel and your left set on the pavement. Try to stay out of the tracks that other trucks have done in front of you because they tend to ice up and you'll slip more easily. Going down the hill, just creep down the hill. Just creep. Nobody ever went down too slow, but all sorts of guys have gone down too fast. Just go slow. Take your time. Try to stay away from the traffic if you can. Go slow enough that the traffic's not around you. They all get fed up and pass, and that's what you want because you want to be all by yourself, just concentrating on keeping the thing straight and just taking it easy. I like to use the pedal rather than the trailer brake, so every axle is engaging, and rely constantly on the Jake. I let the Jake do most of the work. But good question.
That's your theory.
That's my theory, and it's worked for me and for years and years and years. Do log violations disappear by switching jobs? I meant moving from one company to another. No, they stay with your CVOR, your commercial driver's license, for a couple of years anyway. Here in Ontario, I believe it's 2 years that they stay on your record. But no, they follow you.
I just wanted to point out that Jake, not Jake's, but Jake appreciated your advice there, and he just went over about how he has experience with cattle already. He grew up on a farm, so when he heard about the opportunity to make money around cattle, he obviously jumped on that. Would you ever drive bull racks?
Would I? Absolutely, I would. It's one of the few jobs these days where they're not really hard on your hours of service, because when you're protecting livestock, sometimes you've got to break the hard and fast rules for the good of the cattle, the good of the load. So no, bull rack work is one of the last free trucking jobs, like free as in free of some of the rules that there is. So no, yeah, if you could go cow trucking, I'd do it. and get it. Oh, here's Nevada Maverick. Get as much weight on the drive axles as possible in winter driving. If you're going uphill, yes, just for the traction.
Dennis has actually made a pretty funny comment. You can go down a hill slow a million times. You can only go down a hill fast once.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Trucker Hershey, I only had Jakes on when needed. In order to coast with foot off the pedal, they have to be off. New trucks with E-Coast will not activate if the Jake is on. New technology. Z-Bear, spare pair of britches for when it goes sideways. Yeah, that is a butt-clenching experience that you don't want to have, going sideways down the hill. Heavy haul neck. Hey, man, what pattern did you rotate your drive tires in? I found, like, I was kind of anal about alignment and stuff like that. So I would crisscross my drives, like front, left, or right, rear, and do it that way accordingly. That was how I would rotate them. But if I saw unusual wear on one set of tandems, I would move it to, wherever else I thought they would wear the least. I tried to make my tires last as long as I possibly could, because tires are expensive. Like when you're buying tires for a truck and a trailer, that's a lot of money. It's probably the second biggest expense after your fuel that you have every year. So I would nurse my tires and rotate them constantly just to try to get as much wear out of them as I possibly could. But generally, I would X them in the pattern. Daniel, what I don't understand in training, I was told not to use on slippery road, winter conditions. That's why I ask an experience. You're talking about the Jake, Daniel. I find that all sorts of guys that have been taught or are learning from truck drivers south of Interstate 40 are afraid of the Jake on anything but dry road. Up here in Canada, where we run the snow in the mountains all the time, the Jake is your best friend. You've just got to respect it. You don't want to throw it on and jam on the brakes when you're going too fast through a curve, because then you'll be gone. But no, the Jake, the Jake will slide a truck less often than the brakes will. So no, I completely disagree with that trainer. You've got to respect it. You can't be stupid when you engage it, and it's more sensitive when the truck is empty. But no, it's just practice with it. It's like riding a bike. If you practice with the Jake in the bad weather, you'll get comfortable with it. It's your best friend in bad weather. Increase the downward pressure for drive axles. Use less for lane for grip as. Increase the downward pressure for drive axles. Use the lesser used lane for grip, as people have polished. Yeah, he's right. As people have polished the right lane to a nice ring. That's right too. Carve your own path when you're going uphill, especially because you don't want to get on that part that they've all slicked up already.
Bloody Dead coming in with another $5 headed out to see the grandparents. Looking forward to seeing my boss in a future interview. Catch you on the back call. Bloody Dead. Have a great evening, afternoon, weekend when we see you next week. Thank you very much for the $5.
Yeah, thanks, Bloody Dead. Take
Drive
care.
safely.
Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Meredith, which is the most scariest interstate? For me, it has to be I-10 in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana area. If you're talking, if you're talking for traffic, I would have a different answer than if you're talking for weather. So I don't like, oh God, what's that one that goes over the George Washington Bridge? That's probably the one that scares me the most, and it's the traffic. And I just quit running there after a while. I just couldn't get comfortable on the Eastern Seaboard anymore. So I just quit running there altogether. But I knew I was doing just fine. I was so scared of somebody hitting my truck that I quit running the Eastern Seaboard. How many miles could you get out of a set of drives? Best I've gotten is just under 500,000. Yeah, I'm right around the same area, about 500,000 miles for a set of drives. I wish I could have ever gotten that out of a set of steering axle tires. I never got close to that on my steers, but on my drives, yeah, about half a million miles. Heavy haul Nick. Thanks, they are expensive for sure. We rotate our steers every 10,000 miles. Otherwise, the driver's side scrubs off well before the passenger side. Huh. Yeah. I don't remember ever having an issue left to right specifically, but now that I think about it, you're probably right. They do scruff off on the high side sooner. Use the Jenkins steps starting low, medium, high. That's from Fred, and he's got millions of miles under his belt, so he'd know, and he's right too. Yeah, if you can engage it in steps, and sometimes that's the best way to engage it if you're not sure what it's like underneath your rubber. Stabs. I don't use the retarder on slippery downhill roads first, starting with the engine brake, then add the retarder later to avoid the tires locking. Yeah, we don't generally, Stabs, retarders have gone the way of the dodo bird here. We don't really see much of them anymore. It's all pretty much just Jake brakes now. Lettuce King still has a retarder on his 351 Pete. He's the only guy I know that still has one. Merrow Thompson. Hey, Dave, I'm on my way to New York. Is it true that New York City is a foot higher posted clearance? I wouldn't trust any damn sign in New York. Be very careful. And the same with New Jersey. I don't trust the signs there at all. So I would, if it looks too low, creep up to it, climb out on the battery box and have a look, because those signs are not accurate, either one of those states. And you know what they'll do? They'll keep repaving the road surface, the worse the road surface gets, and they won't do anything about the bridge height. So if you're on freshly paved roads, sometimes in New York, you're going to whack the next bridge just because, they've raised the road and the height of the bridge hasn't changed. They're not very clever in New York State, or New York City particularly. It's too risky to run your steers too low. That is for sure. I never tried to nurse my steers to the point where they were almost bald, because it's not safe. Because then they can't drain the water. They can't siphon the water off when you get onto a wet road. So you don't ever want to run your steering axle tires too low. It's a good point. Zebra, what was the one lesson that stuck with you from one of the old timers you learned from? Oh man, that's a good question. When I was learning to back up B trains, I was learning by watching an old guy named Simon Fleckenstein, and man, he was amazing. He could back those things in anywhere. And I learned from him that, and it was a simple thing too, but I learned from him that when you could see the face of the second trailer in the mirror, it meant you weren't straight. So you had to maneuver yourself to get back so everything was straight in line, so you couldn't see the face of the second trailer. And the other thing I learned from him was when I was backing a trailer, I would position the rear trailer in the direction that I wanted it to go to get into the hole, and then I would straighten up the lead and the tractor accordingly. Position, and we did a video on that. Position the rear trailer first, and then kind of straighten up and follow it in. I learned both of those tricks from Simon. God, he was a great driver. I miss him. Good question. A lot of people are afraid of B trains because they think they're too long, but you can get a B train in a lot of places where you can't get in a 53-footer just because it bends in the middle, and sometimes that works to your advantage. I quite enjoyed B trains. Tire wear depends on horsepower and how heavy your foot is. Keep them aired up and keep your maintenance up. And that is true. That's from Dennis Forrest. Something else that wears your tires is when you're down in Arizona and it's 90 degrees in the shade, the pavement actually gets so hot down in Arizona and along I-10 there and 20 and 8 that you can literally watch it melt your tires away if you're driving too fast. It's brutal. Like hot asphalt will ruin a set of tires. Stabs. Retarder is a must. Hold the speed on downhills. We have a lot less faded brakes, and I haven't heard of tragic accidents like you guys have had. We could, Stabs. We've had some terrible wrecks where perhaps a retarder would have helped, because we've had some tragic wrecks at the bottom of hills the last few years. The most noticeable one being outside of Denver a few years back. What do you think about the emission delete? If I had a new engine, I would have done the delete, just so I didn't have trouble with it. But now the EPA is really leaning on the deleted engines, and some states in particular, like Michigan, are handing out fines in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for deleted equipment. So, and at the time, I talked to my shop mechanic. He says it's going to cost you about $7,000 to delete the thing, but then to reinstall the stuff was a whole lot more money for some strange reason. So I was glad I never found myself in that position. I think the emissions equipment hurt the new engines, but I don't think the government cares. It hurts the fuel mileage, on and on and on. Government doesn't care. We're stuck with that now.
All right, chat. Well, that'll about do it for us today. I just wanted to grab one more comment here before we wrap things up. Andy wants to know, have you ever witnessed cargo theft?
No, I have not. I've always been very careful where I parked, and that was for that reason alone, because I never wanted to lose anything out of the back of the wagon. But no, I never have seen anything like that. I and I know it's pretty common these days, but no, I never had even witnessed anything like that, and I'm glad I hadn't.
All right. Well, I just want to take a moment to thank all our donators for today. The Bloody Dead, I know he's already gone, but thank you, Joel, Muppet, Assad, Laceface AK, and I believe I got everyone. And thank you to everyone else who came out and participated in the chat this afternoon. Thank you to everyone who showed up.
Yes, thank you all. Let me just catch a comment here. It was the best way to prevent your windshield wipers from freezing when it's snowing. There's a really good question, and if you find out the secret to that, let me know. I just run new wiper blades as often as I can. Like, I don't let them wear down much at all, and I generally just keep them running and pull over and clean them when I have to, because sometimes, like when it's that freezing slush, you just can't keep it off there after a while. So you've just got to suck it up, pull over and clean it. Don't ever try to stand up and reach out, because that can have disastrous results. So pull over, park, and make sure you're in a safe spot, then get out of the truck and clean them off. Anyway, thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate it. We've got a video coming out Friday. Please join us for that. Take care, everybody.
And speaking of Friday videos, Chad, if you didn't already know, a lot of our videos don't actually even make it to YouTube. We do have a lot more content over on Facebook, so if you haven't already checked out our Facebook page, please be sure to do so. The handle is all the same, Smart Trucking, for extra videos if you want to see that stuff from us, just as a side note.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Stay safe, keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.